Welcome to On the Line. I'm Christine Williams. Coming up, when things get crazy with your teen, where do you turn and what do you do? Stay tuned. Midwinter blues and difficult teens just don't mix. Did you know that today has come to be known as Blue Monday? So if you woke up feeling gloomier than usual, that's why. Several factors: broken New Year's resolutions, after Christmas bills rolling in, winter blues. And if you've got a pain-in-the-neck teenager, it isn't going to help. So we're here to help you gather valuable info on how to cope with your difficult teen. Our guest today is psychologist Dr. Michael Bradley. He is best-selling author of the book, Yes, Your Teen is Crazy. His newest book, When Things Get Crazy with Your Teen, The Why, The How, and What to Do Now. He's here to talk about it today. Our lines are open, so take advantage and take the opportunity to call in early. In fact, the first 5 of you that call in first and speak to me, you got to speak on air now, you're going to get a free copy of Dr. Bradley's latest book. Dr. Bradley, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Now, the first obvious question to all this is, you're saying the premise, teens are crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy in 3 ways. One, their brain doesn't work so good, if you will. As they hit early adolescence, their brains go through major challenges that it's kind of like reorganizing or renovating your house. If you've been through that, everything gets moved around. They're getting ready to leap into adulthood. But that causes them to be things like moody and impulsive, not planned so well. They're crazy in a second way. Our culture makes them crazy. It comes after them in ways we've never come after prior generations of teens and tells them to do things to self-destruct. We've never done this to kids to this extent before. And third, as parents, nothing personal, we don't respond so well to this stuff.
I'm curious what you said, particularly about the second one. You're looking at the cultural issues. It's interesting, I was telling you when you came in here today about an interview we last did with the Executive Vice President, David Kravitz, of the Zoomer generation. He was saying that the baby boomers, now known as the Zoomers, are a very different generation than the younger kids we're seeing coming up today. What kind of pressure, I'm curious, in blending those factors you just set together, are we putting on our children? What kinds of pressures would you say?
I'd say the main one is that we're expecting them to exceed what we did as baby boomers. And the fact is, if you look at this historically, we were incredibly entitled. I know we worked hard and we were out there when we were
the beginning of the me generation, let's face it.
Exactly. I was walking uphill to school both ways too and all that kind of stuff. You know, but the fact is, historically, we had some incredible breaks that our kids are not having. In fact, this new generation coming behind us will not have. And they are having struggles we did not have. And we're measuring them by our yardstick, and it's an unfair yardstick. And the real painful part is they're measuring themselves by us. They're looking at what we achieved and thinking there's no way I can achieve it, and it's an unfair comparison, so a lot of them quit.
Is it natural, though, for parents, Dr. Bradley, to expect that your children will be better than you in some way and continue along that so-called family tree progress?
I think yes and no. I think that we have to be careful about what we mean by better. I would very much like my children to be better than me in terms of my values and character and ethic.
Yes.
But that spills over into vocational achievement, into things that we've been able to do, degrees we've been able to accumulate, that it's so much harder for them to accumulate. So we have to be very careful about the expectations we put on our kids and communicate those clearly to them.
You also talked about the changes that are happening in the teen brain, like a renovation process. Now, this research, relatively speaking, has been quite new in that the entire structure of the teen brain is undergoing so many changes. What do parents need to know about this?
Well, that this is a natural phenomenon. It has nothing to do with character flaws or improper parenting and so forth. It's just biologic changes that occur, and you will see, it's Mother Nature's big trick. Things kind of plunk along great. You've been through this. You're there with your 9, 10-year-old and everything's great, and you're looking out the window and you see this woman, neighbor of yours, getting shrieked at by her 15-year-old daughter, and you're saying, I'd never let my child talk to me like that. Well, It's not
public.
Yeah, well, good luck, right? It happens, and it's just part of nature's process. So when those changes occur, we get these pretty significant increases in moodiness and in impulsive behavior and poor judgment, but it's temporary. The wise parent says it's just another phase. It's kind of like toilet training. You ride it out, it will get better, and you don't take this stuff personally.
Okay, let's face it. People tend to like to comfort themselves. We say, on one hand, well, as you put it, not my kid. But on the other hand, a parent can reach the point where they say, the kinds of problems I'm experiencing with my teenager, I wonder if I'm alone in this. Now, there are main crises that happen in a teen life between teens and parents, and of course we're calling our show Parent-Teen Wars. What are the main ones that you've seen, the major ones that are quite typical that some parents may say, well, look, this isn't normal?
Well, I think in essence what you have is what parents like to call teen rebellion, where the
Yes.
teenager suddenly turns around and says, you know something, your politics are stupid, your clothes are stupid, your religion is stupid. And parents label this rebellion. But in fact, if your neighbor says, I disagree with your religion, or I'm different politically, or I dress differently, we wouldn't call that neighbor rebellion. In fact, the teenager is becoming a unique human being. They're becoming your next door neighbor, God forbid, becoming somebody with a separate set of values, a different view of the world. So underneath that heading, you have all sorts of little wars about things like hair color or length or clothes or messy rooms and politics and so forth. And then you get into the scary areas, the risk factors, sex, drugs, and violence. So as good parents, as wise parents, you need to sort that stuff out. The identity things, the hair and the clothes, don't mean anything. The sex, drugs, and violence do, and that's where you want to focus your time and attention.
Yes, because that was another careful question I wanted to talk to you about, and it has to do with picking your battles.
Yes, ma'am.
There has to be some kind. Now, okay, and I'm trying to make this simple for everybody watching, including myself. There seems to be these days so many do's, and for good reason, and so many don'ts about parenting. Because of the complexity of today, would you say it's correct that we do, as parents, need to be armed with a strategy?
Yes, absolutely. It's very much a military metaphor. First, you got to decide what your mission is. You know, we do seminars, we say to parents, what are you here to do? What is it you're trying to achieve? And they stare at us. Your mission is either to control your kid or teach your child to control herself. Those are the two missions out there, and you got to make a choice. Teaching a child to control herself is an entirely different mission, much more complex. It connotes allowing failure, allowing decision-making when it won't kill them, so that they start to get smart enough to deal with the world on their own. Controlling a kid is a separate mission, very short-term benefit, relatively easy to do, often with a terrible ending.
Now I'm going to be asking you tips on how you teach a child to control his or herself. We're going to do so after the break, but before we go for a break, we're going to go now to you, Andy, on line 4. Hi, Andy, you're on the line.
Yeah, hi, Christine, and hello, guest. I got a very succinct, response to what's going on. Okay, the kids, the teenagers today, they were born by the me generation, who are just as bad as the teens today, but they've grown up, obviously, okay? They're driving their BMWs and all this, that, and the other. And the kids today have the same sense of entitlement as their parents did, like 20 years ago. I have 4 grown-up daughters, okay? 4 grown up, okay? And, I had no problem, with mine, okay? But, because there was no sense of entitlement, okay? But,
Andy, I want to thank you for that call, that sense of entitlement, because it is something we want to deal with today. In fact, in Dr. Bradley's book, he does talk about a similar thing, modeling. That modeling is a huge tool that parents have when it comes to their child. So something we'll be addressing. So keep on watching. Thanks for calling in. Once again, our lines are open. Don't be shy. Give us a call at any time. We're going to return after this break. Don't go away.
Real Life comes your way weekdays at 3 only on CTS. So, what is real life? It's family, food, fun, fashion, and more. It's Real Life weekdays at 3 only on CTS.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on.
You can take a child's hand right now. Please call and reach out to a child in desperate need. You can bring hope to a girl like Raina, who sifts through garbage all day just to survive.
Precious Lord, take my hand.
You can help an orphan like Aceza, whose mother and father died of AIDS.
I am tired, I am weak.
You can save the life of a child like Safi, who is 9 years old and weighs only 31 pounds.
Through the storm, through the night.
All it takes is about $1 a day. Call now for the photo and story of a child you can help.
Precious Lord, and lead me
Don't put it off,
on.
because every moment matters to the child who's waiting for you.
Take my
Please
hand,
call World Vision and sponsor a child today.
Lord, and lead me
Change a
on.
life. Change your own.
Do you believe in miracles? Well, on Sunday, February 15th, you can be part of one. City Kids, a nonprofit Christian organization that reaches out and shares the love of God with hundreds of children in the Hamilton community, needs your help to continue their dream. You and your church community can be part of a miracle for what City Kids has declared to be Miracle Sunday. With over 20 churches already on board, City Kids hopes your church will keep those numbers growing. For more information, visit citykids.ca/Miracle Sunday and help make a miracle happen.
Hello again and welcome back to our program. We're talking about parent-teen wars. Joining us in the studio is Dr. Michael Bradley. And take a look at the book that he's authored. It's called When Things Get Crazy with Your Teen, The Why, The How, and What to Do Now. He's also a best-selling author of his previous book, Yes, Your Teen is Crazy. And like I said, our lines are open so that the first 5 of you that call and talk to me, you will get a complimentary copy of this book. Now, before I continue with the phone lines, Dr. Bradley, any comments you want to make about Andy, our last caller, that basically said, hey, we were the me generation and our kids are learning from us?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to paint it with too broad a stroke, but absolutely, the modeling impact is tremendous.
Huge.
Yeah, if we're angry that our kids are self-centered and only about themselves, a good thing to do before we talk to the kid is to take a look in the mirror and see how we look. What are we doing? How are we leading our lives? Because in fact, kids will do what we do, not what we say. They study us as their parents and use us as a guide stick to get through life. So yes, we do need to be very careful about what we show them.
Now, looking at ourselves in the mirror can be a very scary experience, and this is something I want to talk to Dr. Bradley about shortly, but first I'm going to go to you, Marilyn, on line 1. Hi, Marilyn, you're on the line.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Nice to talk to you. I was just making a comment that when I grew up, I had a rough time with my mother because my sister, who was older, gave her a rough time, so she was on my back all the time. But I raised 6 children.
Wow.
They were all different in personalities, and they went through their hormone times and all the rest of it. But the worst time I had was the 2 youngest ones. They were twins, and by that time their father had passed away when they hit teenage years. So I gave them hard love, made sure they knew I loved them, and they did actually become normal again when they were 19, 21. So to parents, just hang in there. You know, they need your love.
Wow,
And,
thanks for that encouragement, Marilyn. Great that you called in, Dr. Bradley.
Yeah, Marilyn, thank you so much for calling in. That's a wonderful point that I'd like to get out to all the other parents out there and to ourselves as parents.
Yes.
This teenage aspect of life is a chapter in the story of someone's life. We get so bogged down when you get into the teen wars, the craziness, and we think, oh, we're losing our child, it'll be that way forever. That wiring stuff that we talked about inside
Yes.
the teenage brain, it does finish up. They come out of it. The worst of that stuff is over usually by 17, 18. Some people 45, but most of us 17, 18. And your kid comes back to you almost all the time. So thanks for that veteran parent observation.
Now, this can be politically incorrect, I know. The differences, and there are inherent differences, experts talk about it all the time, between boys and girls. I'm curious what you're going to say about this, Dr. Bradley.
We actually researched that. I was part of a research project. We asked parents who raised both, which are tougher, girls or boys? And they would say things like, well, let's see, when our son was 14, he was a maniac. He punched a hole in the wall and kicked the door off the jam one time. And then our daughter turned 14, and boy, did we miss our son. Because girls are smarter. They're very good at working. Parents, girls start these neurologic changes about 2 years ahead of the boys, which is why the girls chase the older boys, by the way. It explains that as well. The 2-year older boys are actually on about the same level in terms of the development of the brain. So girls are down the path faster. They're better at working adults. And mothers and daughters, watch out, guys.
War? That's the real war?
Most powerful relationship on the face of the planet, for better and for worse. They have much more vicious battles often in adolescence, and they end up much closer after that as the child becomes a young adult.
Are there certain points that moms aren't getting with their daughters? Let's hear what those are.
Well, I think that the daughter feels a need to challenge the mother. I mean, I see this with my 11-year-old daughter and my wife. Like the men are backing out of the kitchen like it's a bar fight, you know, because the women are circling who's in charge as this dominance thing, because everybody knows women run the homes. So there is this thing that rises up, and I think they identify so closely with each other, they tend to perhaps pick at each other a little bit more than they do with the son or with the dad and so forth. So again, it's just such a powerful relationship. At times it's bad, but almost always it turns out to be good.
Now, there's certain boundaries, of course, when it comes to any relationship. And when you're looking at parents and teens, I've known cases, honestly, where a parent would say, I've been hit by my teenager. I get sworn at by my teenager. And of course, at that point, an obvious boundary has been violated. So I'd like to know from you, where do you draw the line when it comes to boundaries? Yes, teens are crazy, but there are boundaries that should not be crossed. Dr. Bradley, what are they?
Well, it's abuse. And abuse can be physical, absolutely, and it can be verbal. But as parents, we have to distinguish that, because kids often shout. Part of their neurology is they can't stop the shouting.
But we don't shout back. That's a must here. We shouldn't be shouting back.
No, in fact, you can control their behavior by dropping your voice, because as you drop the volume of your voice, everybody wants to hear what you're saying. So you can whisper, everybody gets quiet. You can do that with your kid. If it's just normal shouting and frustration, and I hate this life, I hate my world, blah, 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 let them shout and stay with them.
So don't go ahead and tell them, because this is some of the mistakes I might have made. You know, you don't know how great you have it, and you keep telling them, no, the world isn't all that bad.
How did that work
it's
out?
much better than you think, and you proceed to tell them all the great things they need to be counting.
Did that work?
So that's not, no, it doesn't usually work.
Absolutely,
Unfortunately,
no.
it gets them madder at that point.
Do the
At that
opposite.
point.
Say, honey, I'm sorry, it's so bad. You know, I'm sorry this house is so horrible for you. Tell me. And then she'll start to unload. And then you get to, and Johnny won't go out with me, and Susie didn't invite me to her party, and I'm fat, I'm ugly, blah, blah, blah. So you get to the real stuff.
So there's something underlying these explosions.
And if it's abusive, though, if they're coming at you and punishing you with words, calling you names, you say one time, son, are you sure you want to talk to me like that? And if he says yes, then you say, okay, and you withdraw. You leave the field of battle. You come back later and say, we can't have those conversations. And until we work it out, you know, we got to retire the cell phone or computer or whatever. We have to find a better way.
Yes, okay. Wow, lots of food for thought. Let's go now to Lillian on line 2. Hi, Lillian, you're on the line.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm having a hard time. My daughter turned 17 yesterday, and I have 3 kids. The other one, 31 and 27. And it seems to me that it's harder to use the same kind of approach with my 17-year-old than it is with the other 2. And like you say, that's exactly one of the questions, where do you draw the line? And do I unplug the computer as time? She spends more time on the computer than the other 2 put together. And that is the thing with all this chatting and chit-chat and boyfriends and breakups and girlfriends and this and that. She likes to be a confidant to her friends. And she likes to be the one that, but I'd like to be that person that she can come to me with things. But she wants to be the strength to other people, but I don't think she's strong enough at 17. So my question is, in that respect as well, where do you draw the line to feel, okay, these teens with single moms and having struggles and problems, can she be that person? Is she strong enough? Where should I step in here?
Great question, Lillian. It's loaded. I'll tell you what, we're going to go for a break first. But I want you to stay with us, okay? Because I'm going to have Dr. Bradley get to that question after this break. Stay tuned.
Each week on Faith Journal, we bring you the news of world religions from around the world. Also with us, we have guests who examine the specific issues related to the...
We're always worried if we're putting enough money into our RRSPs, but we don't have those concerns anymore. Our only regret was, why didn't we come sooner?
Now's the time to meet and discuss your RRSPs. Whether you want to reduce your year-end tax burden or determine if you're on track to meet your retirement goals, AD Vaca & Associates. Come see what you've heard. Call us today.
Financial foundations on the solid rock.
If we can make choices that lead us to a place we don't like, doesn't it make sense we could also make choices that lead us to a place we do like?
This week on Life Today, best-selling author Andy Andrews.
Most people, even when they make a decision, spend so much time analyzing how they made the decision and whether they should have made it that way. They ain't got any energy left to do what they said they decided to do.
Stay with us as Andy reveals the 7 decisions that determine personal success.
I want 2 scoops, not just one. Wanna have a little more, wanna have some fun. Trying to forget about us, though it's hard. Can't buy back on a credit card. I want 2 scoops, not just one. Hey, what a day, like a painting by Monet.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
When you're on the road, there can be a lot to worry about. That's why there's CAA with dependable 24-hour roadside assistance. Now for a limited time, become a CAA member for just $53. That's almost 30% off the regular price. Plus, as a CAA member, you can also save on things like insurance, travel, entertainment, and more. And you won't have to worry about things like dead batteries, locked keys, and flat tires. You're covered 24/7, all for about $1 a week. Not a lot to pay for peace of mind.
You're good to go.
I'm not worried.
Call 1-866-923-3933 and join CAA today. That's 1-866-923-3933. Or sign up online for the same great deal. CAA. Worry-free driving.
Hello and welcome back to our discussion. We're talking about parent-teen wars today. Dr. Michael Bradley is joining me. He is a psychologist. And Lillian on the line, a very valid question indeed. In fact, you have a lot of company out there, Dr. Bradley.
Lillian, great call, first of all. What do you do with that? One, don't do what seems natural, which is to rush in and unplug the computer. Take a step back and gather some intelligence. You have a girl who's found something that she likes to do, which is helping other people. And yet we do worry about taking on too much at age 17. But instead of going to war with that, why don't you grab it and try to move it? You might take her out for a coffee. Go in, call a timeout, sit her down at the coffee shop and say, I know you really love this stuff. Tell you what, I'm worried about the amount of time you put on the computer, but I know you like this. How about if you take a course at the community college, and they have peer counseling programs, maybe you get involved in something at your high school, and help shape that interest that you see, to tell her that it's a very special thing and a wonderful thing, but it needs some polish, and she needs some other aspects of her life to be developing as well. So she won't see you as taking away everything that she loves, and she will see you as supporting who she is and be more inclined to then accommodate these other things that you're raising with her. So connect with that thing that's good about her, tell her it's good, and then help her kind of grow that to feel better about herself.
Thanks for calling in, Lillian. Dr. Bradley, that's a great advice for her to take her daughter out and establish it from there. If you happen to have a situation with your child, though, where the kid just won't listen. We had a horrible tragedy here in Canada, and because you're from the States, in Barrie, where a boy was told by his parents not to go back on it. It was taken away from him. He was so upset he ran away. It didn't turn out good. He ended up his body was found somewhere. There are certain kids that just won't listen when it comes to deactivating that computer, and it can be something drastic. For example, I was told that there's a site you can go to, Virtual Friends, and there's some people, and I'm not just talking your teens out there, I'm talking even adults watching, where you have virtual friends and you create this whole make-believe network for yourself. And I was also told that there's another site, Virtual Life, where if you want to be the CEO of a company, your day's not going well, everything's rotten for you in the real life, you go to your virtual life behind that computer. What do you do if you have a very difficult teen that just won't listen to those boundaries? Does it come a time where you honestly have to say, look, enough is enough, and you're not allowed to go on it?
Yes, you may have to get to that point as a bottom line. But I would submit that before you get to the bottom line, you have lots of opportunities to be a lot less dramatic.
So don't take it to the next level.
Ever. You know, it's like going to war, coming from the States. Be very careful what you go to war over. You know, you have to really pick your battles very carefully. So you start by observing your child, staying close with them, and when you see that computer time ratcheting up, in the beginning, that's the time to do some intervention. That's where you pay him, for example, to not be on the computer. Say you wanted a part-time job, I'll pay you to read books. How about that for a gig? So you can use incentives to try to steer the kid away before it becomes a full-blown addiction. Now, what you are talking about is addiction, and we now are very close to declaring that an actual addiction. Many kids and adults are addicted to their computer screens. We're very worried about that. The time to treat addiction is before it hits. So when you see the trend occurring, that's when you move in and try to steer your child. Do you have to get to a point where you pull the plug one day? Yes, that may have to happen. Do everything else you can before you get to that point.
Now, you're all about parent-child bonding, and that's great because you gave us a sneak preview that sometimes they start off yelling and carrying on until it really gets to that point where they want to talk to you. But there are some kids that will be determined to keep telling their parents, mind your own business, particularly if they may have secrets that they don't want to tell you. They may very well have a group of friends that you don't like or that you think is a bad influence. So they want you to butt out of their life, okay? They
say
at what point,
they want you to butt out of their lives.
But they really don't. Teens really don't. Critical point you're making there.
Yeah, it's very different. They're supposed to push away from us. You know what adolescence is? Do you remember labor pains? Remember birthing a child? You do recall that, right? It wasn't a sweet, peaceful, romantic adventure, right? There was pain involved and some yelling, perhaps, a little blood. Well, adolescence is the rebirth of the child. The child is becoming an adult. So it can be a very difficult time. But if you reframe that, in a sense, as labor pains, we don't get so freaked out by some of the bad things that happen. So when a kid says, butt out of my life, yeah, she's saying that, but part of her is saying, and I need you in my life. It's a very much a conflict time, like childbirth, you know, pushing and shoving and all the pain. So that's a normal aspect. So if parents would just kind of sidestep that and say to the kid, I hear you saying you want me to leave you alone. I love you, honey. Let me know when you want to go out for a coffee. I'm here. You keep selling, keep reaching out, and at some point the kid will pick up that invitation, but don't quit selling. That's when the child feels abandoned.
What about the youngster on the reverse that won't leave the nest? Another condition we're seeing today, and a lot of parents are complaining about this. You've got this 35-year-old that just won't leave home. We're talking about teens here, but it starts somewhere. What do you do with a teenager like that?
Yeah,
they don't want to leave home, they don't want to get a job, they don't want to do anything.
You say you got to get a job. You got to leave home. And ultimately, sometimes that comes to changing the locks. But again, you start early on helping the child with autonomy. Remember that that 35-year-old is like the teen in reverse. This is somebody who needs to be on their own and should be. Something is wrong. They may be afraid. They may be unable to handle the social anxiety of being on their own, whatever. So start to get